Your Holiness, where you have, I've read and I've heard you say that in the past, whereas we relied on places of worship like the churches to educate the heart in the past, that more and more we need to rely on schools and places of education. And our next guest Mary Gordon, agrees with you about that. Mary Gordon has drawn on her remarkable vision and her mind and her heart to create a school-based program that teaches children empathy. And Mary is building a caring and a peaceful and a civil society, one child at a time, through her program, The Roots of Empathy.
Your Holiness, it's a wonderful opportunity to tell you about babies and the milk of compassion. The program that Maria describes brings a parent and an infant into a classroom to visit every 3 weeks to watch the miracle of that baby's development. And in a world where we have, as you talked this morning about, marginalized one another and found ways to hate one another because of our differences, this is a program that brings children together because they build solidarity around a baby, and they find how we were all like that baby, and that baby is a human being. And when they find the humanity in the baby, they learn to forgive themselves and find the humanity in themselves. The idea of the program is then you bridge to finding the humanity in the other person. So what happens in the program, kindness grows, children understand one another, and the atmosphere of learning changes. So I'd like to show you a picture of what it looks like, if we could have the first slide. This is our little hero, and the baby comes with the mother, sometimes the father, and sits on a green blanket, and the children observe the baby's needs and the baby's feelings. And when the baby demonstrates being frightened or excited, the children learn the word for what that is. And then they discover how they themselves have had that same feeling. And all of the children build a caring feeling around that baby. If we could have the next slide, please. This is one of the fathers in the program. And when this father came to the program, one little boy said to him, "Do you play with the baby?" And he said, "Yes." And the little boy said, "Well, what do you play with the baby?" And he said, "Do you want me to show you?" And they said, "Yes." And he's 6'5". He lay down on the floor and he played with kissing the baby's toes. And the children in that classroom were starved for that kind of love, to see that interaction. If we could have the next slide. This is one of our 6-year-old children, and when you see how children understand the little baby, that they understood that this little baby was very sad because the mother had gone. And it's in that relationship of the mother and the baby that we become human, that we learn what it is to be unselfishly loved. And if you've never been unselfishly loved, it's hard to love others. So that 6-year-old child did what many adults that I've worked with can't do. If people who have abused or neglected their children, or domestic violence, societal violence, we don't understand how we're hurting the other person. And that 6-year-old was able to understand that a baby cries not just because they're hungry, but because they're sad. And my sense is that child will grow up to have compassion and to include all others in their life. Now I think there's another slide. Yes, this is a little boy who demonstrates compassion. This is a typical schoolyard situation. His friend got frightened on the top of the slide. And everybody So everybody calls names and makes fun. But little Ricky, he says to all the children, "Come down from the ladder. I'm going to help my friend." And he put his arms around him and he said, "We will go down together." Now, we need Ricky in every boardroom and in every war room because the next slide, please. This is a picture of courage. This little girl had the courage to stand up for her friend when people made fun of her skin color. We have countries who do that, and nobody stands up. In Roots of Empathy, the children learn that if you don't stand up for something that's unfair or cruel, you condone it. So we don't try and change the children who are bullies or mean. We try and help the children from inside come to understand that they have the courage to say or do whatever is needed to make things fair. And children have a profound sense of what's fair. And often we don't listen to them. A little girl who was 9 years old, when she was in the playground, the children made fun of her running shoes and said they were babyish. And this... It's a bad thing. And this little girl, her best friend heard it. And then they came into school. And she worried about it all morning. And when they went out again, she said to her friend, "May I wear one of your running shoes?" It's courage. It's the cleverness of the heart. The example didn't take words. It was a deed. And as you said, prayer is not enough. It takes deed. But it's from the loving interaction that they see with the mother or the baby that they learn the language of the heart. And then they aren't told by teachers what to do. All of these children encourage one another to be kind and helpful in the world. So I wonder what you think about babies as teachers.
Correct.
Sherry, would you like to respond? It seems that everybody wants to know the answer.
I think that's easier. So that could respond to yaga.
It's probably better to respond immediately because otherwise we
My computer here, not very good. So the previous speaker's sort of points already gone. So response or answer immediately, much easier. You mentioned, the Kasa, such sort of training in order to implement or in order to carry large scale, you need or you find a little as a hindrance or uneasiness with political or some other goes on. Take 가르쳐는 저거래. 되게 영심어서 되게 변은 지금 부글이야 참절로 좀 돼야 돼. 라랭께가 주잖아요. 즉 첼시버도
Mark, you mentioned that as a result of your studies, there was a very clear indication how the PATH's curriculum actually is very effective. You can see the results. But when it comes to practical implementation of these curriculum in the school, school system, you mentioned confronting difficulties from various sources. His Holiness was wondering whether you could clarify a bit more on what you mean. What are the quarters from where you're facing the difficulties?
This is nothing to do with politics. And everybody wants a healthy society. Everybody wants. And less crime. More peaceful. So then, how? Why? Why is there some obstacles?
You will be as soon as you start talking.
As a response to your presentation, I really is impressed. You already carry some experiment and already witness the positive result and also scientific evidence. So this is the way to promote. But then the obstacle,
So His Holiness is wondering whether you could clarify a bit more where is the resistance coming from, because there is nothing political in this.
Well, Mary can maybe add to this too, because as both people who train teachers, it's usually not the teachers. The teachers want this. The teachers became teachers because they felt they had a gift in having loving relationships with children. But the educational system does not necessarily support that as a primary goal. In most places in the United States and in the world, the education system focuses almost completely on academic achievement. When we look at the colleges of education around the world, we see not one college of education in the world that requires the teachers to have a class on social and emotional development. So they're at the systems level.
Objective course.
His Holiness is wondering whether the conflict arises from a very important sort of basic philosophy of the whole modern education system, which is the emphasis on objectivity. So
I think not only modern education, but I think when we utilize the power of investigation, I think objective, unbiased, is the basis.
Very important principle.
I think from the Buddhist tradition, unless you carry study or investigation or reasoning with full objective, otherwise you cannot sort of reject or different interpretation, reject the lungi musing tenshi reject chigorba opposition to design 공을 내지도선 시골 자서 objective 예산 뒤치고르마도 셰페일 가능성이 있답니다.
So for example, even in the context of Buddhist practice, there's a tremendous emphasis placed on the principle of objectivity, to the point that the individual has the liberty to reinterpret the explicit statements of a scripture if it conflicts with one's personal understanding or experience.
So if you carry the study or investigation with tremendous faith, then it will not be objective. So respect, different. I think at least different time. Right? Or judgment, this is good, this is bad. Another field. When we carry investigation, no question of bad or good, no question of right or wrong, just investigate the reality.
There is no moral or ethical evaluation involved.
But then, once we we get the full knowledge about the reality. Then another level or another occasion, what this is harmful or also useful. 자자가 한다 modern education fee 나로 academic fee 나로리야 다 잠졌을나 랑도케시 레고노와 다 디임베이나 다 디양도스 가소리 드신다게 모두가.
So His Holiness is wondering whether the reason why there is resistance in introducing this kind of social emotional learning curriculum in the basic education system is because the underlying philosophy in education and academic pursuit is this emphasis on objectivity. Whereas when we bring issues of morality or social and emotional learning, we are already bringing in a kind of a moral, ethical, evaluative elements. So if that is where the resistance is coming from, then we need to look at this problem in a deeper way and tackle it on a different level.
Well, that's a very, very interesting point, and I think that's true in many places, that there are ethic and moral issues. One of the fascinating things here, being in British Columbia, not from here, is how the government of British Columbia has embraced these moral issues. So, for example, social responsibility is seen as one of the most important things to be taught in the British Columbia schools. Now, that's quite rare. I don't think we have very few places in the United States at this point in which being socially responsible is an outcome that is at the paramount place in education. But I think we're also seeing a big change. We're seeing now that our ways, our past ways, don't work very well, and I think there's much more openness now to moving these approaches into the center of education.
Not very socially and emotionally evolved right now and move us along. I have empathy for our other guests who would like to speak. But this is a conversation.
Now because the close discussion with first person, now second person. 구비자는 술래비야 소리, 기ging 술래비야. I think yes. In certain field. Now, when we study about basic human nature, I think children, very young children, I think they can demonstrate because they have no hesitation. Is it to show their natural sort of feeling? So I think we can judge the basic nature of human being, not those sophisticated people. I think the sophisticated people, I think real humans are of good quality as well as bad quality. I think they because of their height, and then some kind of create artificial appearances. So that gives us more confusion. that sometimes I do feel I prefer more uneducated people. They are more honest. Fortunately.
More simple. More simple.
So therefore, certainly, I think we can learn much thing from those young children, still unspoiled, right? Unspoiled. But not all things. Of course, that is 그 정신 생기기 연대인데 페이스북 딴데야인가.
It seems that children are more capable of naturally expressing what is very fundamental to human being.
I think one I always mention. One I think is a clear example. Young children, they don't care what color, what religious faith. No. Whether it's that other child, whether come from rich family or poor family, don't care. so long, play together, smile together, completely sort of equal or same. They appreciate more about because of the playful way, playful and smile and joking. I think that's the fundamental sort of the value, fundamental value. The marvelous sort of smart sort of brain, sort of knowledge and wealth. These are secondary, I feel. The intelligence must serve these basic human good quality. 这个是都讲的很少的。State meet on that is. State meet on that is. Meet state on that 말이 생겼어요. State 기고. One quotation I saw. The state meant for human being, for people not for the state. That's clear. So basic human values are the main cause of that, the main foundation. Our education, our religious teaching, all must serve to strengthen, to increase these basic values. Better education, better wealth, forgetting these basic human value is absolutely wrong. So sometimes we take, I think, more serious about man-made way. So
sometimes there is a tendency that develops in us that makes us take more seriously the artificial constructs of the human mind, and at the expense of what is very natural to the human mind.
Thank you, Mary.
So is it sufficient answer for your question?
It's
It's
a very rich answer.
Oh.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you,
you.
Mary.